Good morning, dear students. So, in today's class, we shall discuss a topic called services, which is a topic from fifth module in Android programming subject. Services. Basically, what do you mean by this service? So, service is a basic fundamental component of Android application development. As we all know that we are having different Android application development components like activity, services, broadcast receivers, like this. So, therefore, services is also one among the basic component of Android application development. So in today's class, we are going to discuss what do you mean by service. So basically services is nothing but so which are used for long running tasks. So if you want to have any long running task, so we can make use of these services. uh, Basically this services does not have any user interaction, so there is no UI for these services. So unlike your activity, so user interaction is compulsory. So if you for example, if you want to fill any form, so we go for making you use we go for using this activity. So there user interface is compulsory necessary, so but in case of services it is not required. So we shall see in this topic the services for long running tasks and what do you mean by intent service. These are the two topics which we are going to discuss in this particular presentation. So first I will be discussing what are services which is used for long running tasks. So we can see here in this slide, so these services are basically complex. Why? Because so since they are involved in performing long running activities or tasks, so it is complex. So and there are many ways for configuring a service. So that I will be explaining while creating this application. So after this presentation, I am gonna develop one application on services. So there you'll come to know how to configure the different ways of configuring this service. So next, the third point says that so this presentation actually gives the introduction information only. Why? Because so it is services is a vast subject. So until unless we go and learn and explore by ourselves, so we cannot easily understand the services. So in the next coming topic, so I'll be explaining so how to create these services, a demo on these services. So there I actually use the basics how to start a service, how to stop a service. So I make use of buttons to start a service and also one more button to stop the service, like that. So next, so we shall define what is a service. A service is an application component. So as I told you that, so one of the fundamental basic application component is the service that can perform long running operations in the background. And also I already told that so it does not provide any user interface. User interface is not at all required for this services, unlike your activity. So here, so before starting this service, so I would like to share one analogy with respect to service. For example, assume that you have purchased a laptop and you are working in that laptop, new laptop, and after working for a couple of weeks, so it may get crashed or it is not working. So at that time, what you will do? So what is the first course of action from your side? So you'll call the customer care of that company. So and the company will send one executive to your home or your office. Then you will come and inspect your laptop and you will say that it requires 5 days to get it repaired, and you will take that laptop to company. So meanwhile, so what you can do? So will you keep quiet for all these 5 days, or you go to that company and sit there and how the laptop is get repaired like that? No. So still you can eat, sleep, and you can work in the office. So where the any work which does not involves that laptop, so you can do all other stuff. So this is what. So from this, what I would like to get it is so in these 5 days, the laptop is getting repaired by the executive person, and also you can parallelly work the other work. So that is the meaning. So that 5 days your laptop is getting repaired in the background, so which we call it as service. So in the same way, in the Android application also, we make use of services for long running tasks. So what are the services good for? So the very first thing is network transactions. So in the next coming slides, I will be explaining there are two types of forms of services like started service and bind service. So in bind services, we make use of network transactions, like a client will request something and the server will provide results to that particular request. Next, we can go for play music. So you can play a music player in your phone and then perform some file input output operations, and also interact with the content provider. So what do you mean by this content provider? So content provider which acts as a database. So between applications, if you want to access some data between two applications, we can make use of this content provider. So next is what are the characteristics of services? So unlike activity, broadcast services also started with intent. So here also we can start the services by invoke an intent method by method called start intent. So next is it can run when user switches application. I mean, for example, I can give an example here. So whenever you are playing a music player, so you can just minimize it and you can parallelly work with other things like browsing the net, and also you can type some text in the notepad like that. So still the player will be running in the background. So even though you switch from music player application to another notepad application or another browsing application, even still it exists in running in the background. So next, so even services are having its own life cycle. So we know that there are different activity life cycles of activity life cycle. Likewise, here also we have life cycles of these services, like on create, on start, on resume, on stop, on destroy, on restart. So there are different life cycle methods of services also. So while developing application, we shall see what are the life cycles that need to be involved. So next, other apps can use the service. So while developing application, we can also give some manage permissions in the manifest file, so that who can use and who cannot use your services application. And also the last one is it runs in the main thread of its hosting process. So there you go. So we are now we are gonna see what are the forms of services. As I told you that there are two types of services like started services and bind services. So if you want to start this start service, so you want to invoke a method called start service, then a lifecycle method called on create, then on start command. So this is another lifecycle method to be used in started service. So then in the service running, so user can put what and all the functionalities need to be executed by this service that can be added. So you can just see the flowchart right hand side. So call to start service. So if you want to start a service, you should call a method call or invoke a method called start service, then on create, then on start command. So then inside after this on start command, we'll write some functionalities what and all to be provided by the service. Then it should be destroyed. So that was the next point says. So basically this services runs indefinitely until it stops itself. So there should be a code, external code, or by itself there should be some method to stop the service itself. So usually services does not update the UI. As we all know that only activity can update the UI, or the broadcast receivers can do the task, but services cannot update the UI. So if you want to achieve that, so we can use broadcast receivers inside this. So that is what next we should destroy by calling a method called on destroy. So therefore it is completely out of the memory. So then finally the service shut down. So this is the first type of service called started service. So next type is bound service, or it's called as binded service. So this type of services basically used, as I already told, one of the users of these services are in network transactions. So here, so there it comes, offers a client server interface that allows components to interact with the service So that is what the client can request something, and the server will process that request, and it will send a result. So the next point is that only the clients send request and get results. Next, started with bind service. Unlike this started service, this bind service is started by invoking a method called bind service, then invoking a lifecycle method called on create, next on bind. So after on bind, so you can provide whatever all the functionalities that need to be added here. Next, here the main difference between the started service and bind service is, so started service can destroy or it can stop by itself, or any other can also write a code to stop that service. Here, since bind services are involved in client server transactions, so for example, if 10 students are requesting for the results from the server, so all the results to be processed, then only you can stop this bind service. Suppose if only one student has got the result, and then he cannot stop that entire service, because all the 10 transactions to be stopped at a time, after the results are out, so then only you can stop this or destroy this bind service. So that is what the flowchart tells here. So next topic is services and threads. So as we all know that the services also are running using the main thread, and here we should not assign the task or work which is highly CPU intensive work, because if you are providing basically services are used for long running tasks, but you should not give too long running tasks to this services, because it will the system get crashed or the application gets crashed, and it won't be responding. So if you are giving long running tasks to a service, so instead of that, what we can do, so we can have one more worker thread or background threads, and assign these type of long running highly intensive CPU work threads, task. So next, updating the app. As I told you that since the services are not used with UI, it cannot access the UI. So then how can we update the results? So that is where I already told that. So we can make use of activities of broadcast receivers. We can use broadcast receivers, call the broadcast receiver, and make sure that whatever the work done by the service can be updated. So next we have another form of service called as foreground services. So which is more higher priority than your background services. So here I would like to tell three different things which components are having highest priority. The most highest priority is activity, because user interface is involved. So therefore it is given that component, activity component is given as the highest priority. So next, coming to picture, that is foreground services. So even it runs in the background but requires that the user is actively aware it exists. Example, I can give music player using music service, or as downloading a file. See, I think you might have experienced that while downloading a file, so in between you cannot kill the downloading. You cannot destroy the downloading. So that is where these foreground services are tells us. So it means little awareness is required by the user. Attention by the user is required for these foreground services, but completely it is not required for background services. That's what the point says. Higher priority than background services, since user will notice its absence. Next, must provide a notification which the user cannot dismiss while the service is running. So as I told you that downloading a file, so till it completes 100%, you cannot slide right side, and we cannot clear that particular service. So now we are gonna see how to create a service. So unlike activity and broadcast receiver, so in the manifest file we should have a tag by name called service, Android name, example service, and we can manage these permissions. So that is what I already told. How to so who can access this service, who should not access this service, that permissions can also be provided in manifest file. Next, we should create a class, subclass of this intent service or service class. As I told you that, so services can be started by this intent, and also we'll be discussing about the types. What do you mean by intent service also? Next step is, so how to implement lifecycle methods here. So next is we need to start service from activity. So finally we should make sure service is stoppable. As I told you that there should be a code written externally, or by itself it should stop the service. So next we'll see how to stop a service. A started service must manage its own life cycle. If not stopped while keep running, so it will be consuming the resources. As you all know that, so if any task is started or any activity is started, it should be destroyed or it should be stopped. Until unless we are not stopping, so it will keep on consuming the resources. So that is what we can have a method called stop self method or stop service. So where another component can stop by it calling, and bound service destroyed when all clients unbounded. So that is what I told. I gave an example of students getting results from server. So when if and only if all the students are got the results, then only bound service can be stopped. So intent service is destroyed after on handle intent. So by calling this method, so by handling this intent method, so we can destroy intent service. So I'll stop here and I'll continue this intent service in the next session.